Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive into Chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, yeah.
This one, we're going to unpack some pretty fascinating things about action, inaction, and the path to liberation.
Right.
It's like a philosophical puzzle box.
Yeah.
And I, for one, am very excited to crack it open with all of you today.
Yeah.
And with our expert.
Glad to be here.
So to kind of set the scene a little bit.
Yeah.
Picture this.
Okay.
We're on an ancient Indian battlefield.
Okay.
Right in the thick of the epic Mahabharata.
Yeah.
We've got Arjuna, a warrior, and he's facing this serious crisis of conscience.
Right.
She's got to fight his own family, and he's completely paralyzed by doubt.
Yeah, it's...
Enter Krishna, his charioteer, who just happens to be a divine incarnation.
Right.
Talk about an intervention.
Yeah.
So it's in this extraordinary setting that Krishna delivers this timeless message about how to live a meaningful life, even amidst, chaos and conflict.
Yeah.
And Chapter 5, which is often called Karma Sannyasa Yoga, or the book of religion by renouncing fruit of works, dives right into the heart of this dilemma.
It does.
And I think Arjuna's dilemma is something we can all relate to on some level.
Absolutely.
He's torn between renouncing all actions, basically becoming a hermit, or engaging in the world, and all its complexity.
It's a choice we all have to make.
And what's so fascinating is that Krishna doesn't say one path is right and the other is wrong.
Yeah. He acknowledges both.
Right.
Both paths can lead to bliss, to that ultimate state of liberation. Yeah. But he makes clear that acting with holiness and detachment from the fruits of those actions, that's the superior path.
So, okay, help me wrap my head around this idea of detachment. Because it sounds a little bit like, should we just become passive observers of life?
It's not about passivity.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You're putting your heart and soul into a project at work, right?
Yeah.
A true renunciate, what the Bhagavad Gita calls a Sankhyan, wouldn't be fixated on getting a promotion or praise. Right. They would pour their energy into the work itself.
Okay.
Finding fulfillment in that act of creating.
Okay.
Regardless of the outcome.
So it's almost like shifting our focus from external rewards to the kind of like the intrinsic value of the actions?
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's a subtle but very powerful shift.
Yeah.
And, it's beautifully illustrated by the analogy of the lotus leaf.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The lotus leaf. I love that image.
Yeah.
It's just, it really gets to the heart of it.
It does. Just as water glides effortlessly off the lotus leaf, actions don't cling to the soul of someone who acts without attachment to the results. Yeah. They remain untainted, pure.
This is something I think about a lot and I struggle with, which is expectations.
Yeah.
I put my heart into something, and then I get disappointed when things don't turn out the way I hoped.
Sure, that's where the practice of detachment comes in. It's not about suppressing our hopes or desires, but recognizing that we just can't control everything.
Right.
The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that true freedom lies in letting go of that need to control the outcomes.
And there's this line in the text that really captures this for me, which is, not of myself I do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a surrendering of the ego's need to be in charge.
Wow. It's a profound recognition that we are instruments in this larger cosmic play.
Yeah.
We have the free will to act, but the results are not solely in our hands. Right. And that's okay.
Okay, so how does all of this tie into the concept of yoga yukta?
Right.
It's another term that comes up in Chapter 5.
Yeah.
And it sounds pretty mystical.
It is. Well, imagine someone sitting in the middle of a bustling city, surrounded by noise and chaos.
Yeah.
A yoga yukta would be able to maintain their inner stillness undisturbed by all those external distractions.
So it's more than just doing yoga poses. It's like cultivating a certain inner state of being.
Absolutely. A yoga yukta is someone who has achieved union with the divine through dedicated practice. And that practice goes far beyond physical postures.
Okay.
They've mastered their senses, quieted the mind, and aligned themselves with that divine will.
So their actions are flowing from a place of pure intention.
Exactly. Not ego-driven desires.
The text also uses this striking metaphor to describe the body as the town with 9 gateways.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of cryptic.
Good one.
But I'm starting to see how it connects to this idea of yoga-yukt.
Yeah, it's one of the most vivid metaphors in the entire chapter. The 9 gateways represent the senses. Our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and so on, you know? We're constantly bombarded with input from the outside world through these gateways, right?
Yeah.
Our senses.
And a yoga-yukt is able to remain detached from that constant influx of sensory information.
They're not shutting themselves off from the world, but they're not letting it dictate their inner state.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's almost like being able to observe your thoughts and emotions without getting completely swept away by them. So we've got this idea of detachment. We've got this inner state of being a yogi-yukt. And we've got this sense of surrendering to a larger cosmic play. But where does the divine actually fit into all of this?
Right.
If we're not supposed to be attached to the fruits of our actions, who's really in control? I mean,
that's the $1 million question.
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, are we just puppets on a string?
Not quite.
Okay.
Krishna explains that we do have free will, the ability to choose our actions, but the divine, this ultimate reality that the Gita often refers to as Brahman, remains neutral, detached, like the master of the world described in the text. The divine sets the stage, but doesn't interfere with our choices, the consequences that follow.
So we have the freedom to act, but we're not ultimately responsible for the results.
But it's a paradox that points to a deeper truth. You know, the Bhagavad Gita is inviting us to consider a different way of being in the world. A way that transcends our limited, ego-driven perspective.
I mean, this is all so incredibly thought-provoking.
It is.
But maybe let's pause here for a moment. Let all this sink in.
Let it sink in.
We'll be back soon to explore more of this fascinating chapter.
Absolutely. Welcome back. You know, we've been exploring some pretty deep concepts. But Chapter 5 isn't just about abstract philosophy. It offers some surprisingly practical guidance.
I love that about the Bhagavad Gita. It's like, it's not just some ancient text gathering dust on a shelf.
It's a living, breathing source of wisdom that we can apply to our modern lives.
One of the key themes that I think resonates so strongly today is this idea of mastering our emotions. The Gita doesn't shy away from the fact that we all struggle with feelings like lust and anger and jealousy.
Absolutely.
I mean, oh, tell me about it. You know, we've all had those moments where we've let our emotions get the best of us.
Oh, yeah. Road rage, anyone.
Road rage, exactly. But instead of just telling us to suppress these emotions, the Gita offers us a more nuanced approach.
It does.
Which is to understand where these emotions are coming from, recognizing their power, and developing strategies for detaching from their grip.
It's about understanding the nature of those emotions.
So it's not about denying our feelings, but about becoming more aware of them and choosing how we respond.
Think of it like developing an inner observer. Someone who can just witness those emotions without getting completely swept away by them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you're creating some space between ourselves and those intense feelings so we can make more conscious choices.
Precisely.
But how do we actually do that? Like, how do we put that into practice?
The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that true renunciation isn't just about giving up material possessions. It's also about renouncing the hold that our emotions have on us.
So in that traffic jam scenario, instead of letting anger take over, we could try to just observe that feeling. Without letting it dictate our actions.
It's not easy. But with practice, we can start to loosen the grip of those negative emotions.
And create more space for peace and clarity. It sounds like it's all about finding that balance between action and inaction.
It is a recurring,
which we've been talking about,
theme throughout
Chapter 5.
How we find that balance in our daily lives.
That's the...
I mean, we can't all just go live in a cave and meditate all day.
Of course not. You know, it's about bringing that same mindful awareness to whatever we're doing.
Whether it's our work, our relationships, or even something as mundane as washing the dishes.
So bringing that yogi-yoked mindset, that inner stillness, into every aspect of our lives.
Into everything you do,
Okay, so acting with intention, offering our actions as a form of selfless service.
Yes.
And letting go of the need to control every outcome.
Yeah, and this is where the concept of karma
comes in. Karma, right?
Yeah.
It's a word that gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
But I think it's often misunderstood.
It is.
People tend to see it as some kind of cosmic reward and punishment system.
Right, like a scorecard almost.
Right, exactly. Do something good, get good karma.
Yeah.
Do something bad, get bad karma.
But the Bhagavad Gita presents a more nuanced perspective on karma. It's not about keeping score.
Okay.
It's about understanding that our actions have consequences, but those consequences don't have to define us.
So it's about taking responsibility for our choices without getting trapped in a cycle of guilt or regret.
Yeah, it's about learning from those experiences and moving forward with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity.
And this leads us to this ultimate goal that Chapter 5 points towards, which is liberation, or what's often called nirvana.
Nirvana. Word.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
What does that even mean? Is it some kind of blissful state?
It's often described
that we can only reach after we die.
As a state of complete liberation from suffering. A merging with the divine. A transcendence of the cycle of birth and death.
Okay, so it's like the ultimate goal.
Yeah, it is the ultimate goal. But the beautiful thing is Chapter 5 suggests that it's possible to experience glimpses of this state while we're still alive.
So it's not some far-off destination, but rather a state of being that we can cultivate here and now.
It's about cultivating inner peace. That sense of unity with the divine, that freedom from the ego's constant demands.
Okay, and the path to achieving this state, according to the Gita, involves not just intellectual understanding,
it's a lot more,
but also deep inner work, ethical conduct, and a sincere yearning.
A yearning.
For union with the divine.
It's beautifully described in the text with the image of the sun of wisdom dispelling the darkness of ignorance.
I love that. True liberation comes from within.
It does.
From cultivating that inner light of understanding and compassion.
It's a powerful metaphor for the transformative journey that Chapter 5 invites us to embark on.
And it sounds like it's a lifelong journey.
It is.
One that requires continuous effort and self-reflection. But ultimately, a journey that's filled with incredible potential for growth and fulfillment.
Yes.
This is so inspiring, thought-provoking.
It is.
But let's be real, it's also a lot to digest.
It is.
So before we jump into the final part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to let all this sink in. All right, welcome back. I don't know about you, but my mind is still buzzing a bit after all that talk about detachment, karma, and even nirvana. It's amazing how much wisdom is packed into this one chapter.
It really is a testament to the timeless power of the Bhagavad Gita.
Totally. But I think now comes the real challenge, which is how do we actually apply these ancient teachings to our modern, often chaotic lives? It's easy to talk about detachment when you're a warrior prince on a battlefield, but what about when you're dealing with deadlines and traffic jams and relationship drama?
Right. It's the million-dollar question. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all solution or a magic formula for instant enlightenment, but it does invite us to take those core principles, like acting with detachment, mastering the senses, cultivating inner peace, and finding ways to integrate them into our own, unique circumstances.
So finding what works for us as individuals. What might look like renunciation for one person could be totally different for another.
Precisely. Remember that the essence of renunciation is that internal shift in perspective, that letting go of attachment to outcomes. It's not about forcing ourselves to fit into some kind of predetermined mold.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could actually be really applicable to everyday life. But I think some concrete examples would really help to bring this home for our listeners. Like, what would acting with detachment look like in, say, a work setting?
Okay, let's imagine you're working on a project that you're really passionate about. A person operating from a place of attachment might be really fixated on getting recognition or a promotion.
Right, they're really focused on the what's in it for me aspect.
Exactly. But if we approach that same project with, the principles of the Bhagavad Gita in mind, we might shift our focus to the work itself, finding fulfillment in the process of creating, contributing, and just doing our best without being overly attached to the results.
So finding meaning and purpose in the work itself, rather than seeking external validation.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's about shifting from a what's in it for me mentality to a how can I contribute perspective. And, the same principle can actually apply to our relationships as well.
Oh, that's interesting. How so? I mean, relationships can be, pretty tricky to navigate sometimes.
Absolutely. But instead of clinging to expectations, trying to control the other person or needing them to behave in a certain way, we can practice detachment by accepting them for who they are.
So loving and supporting people without needing them to change or meet our expectations. That sounds challenging, but incredibly liberating at the same time.
It is challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding, too.
Yeah.
It allows us to experience deeper, more authentic connections because we're not constantly trying to fit the other person into a box. And it actually reminds me of that beautiful comparison in Chapter 5, the Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, the unclean dog, and the outcast.
Oh, yeah. They're all seen as equal in the eyes of someone who has attained true understanding. It's such a powerful message about seeing beyond the superficial differences that can sometimes separate us.
Exactly. And when we can cultivate that kind of understanding and compassion in our relationships, it just creates a space for real connection and growth.
So it sounds like the Bhagavad Gita is ultimately offering us a roadmap, or at least some really valuable tools for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life, even amidst all the chaos and complexity of the modern world. And it's not about escaping from life, but about engaging with it in a more conscious, intentional way.
Yeah, beautifully said. It's a call to cultivate inner peace, act with purpose, and connect with that divine spark within ourselves and in all beings. And it's a journey that's available to all of us, regardless of our background, beliefs, or circumstances.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. It's been such a fascinating journey exploring this chapter with you. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, but hopefully we've given our listeners some food for thought and some inspiration to apply these timeless teachings to their own lives.
Absolutely. And remember, the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita is that it's a text we can return to again and again, always finding new insights and guidance along the way.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita.